I'm here.
But you could go ahead and was Barack Obama the first gay president?
Probably not. Uh, but we'll open up a whole new can of worms. Let's just take it that we have figurehead presidents. They're more likely to have been. We have those who have been commanders and actually run stuff, and they're not likely to have been. So just look for the usual suspects, and you can come up with a list. And also, when people start speaking against manhood and such things or doing it, you can tell. That's the new initiation into the in club today. You know, the 6B thing: unbelt, drop breeches, drop boxers, bend over, spread butt cheeks, get boy bang. That's the new initiation ceremony. So we've got a lot of them. And 55 years ago, I heard them around the country on various college campuses boasting of how they were going to take over, working out the methodology and committing themselves to it. And if you heard it as it developed, it looks glaringly obvious to you now because you saw it. It's like looking at cars from the 1950s all the way up to now and seeing how things have changed. It doesn't look strange to you, whereas somebody that had just got in a car at 18, 16, 17, just a little while ago, you might find some of the things in there questionable. But it is what it is. It's called being aware. And we are in a trendy period in American history, Black history, anybody's history now in this part of the world. We're being aware and well versed in what's gone on before so you can learn the lessons and apply them to the future is non existent in terms of an objective. Schools are pretty pathetic. They aren't teaching, they aren't preparing students either in academia or in vocational fields to be prepared for life. The attitude that they are putting in people's heads, whether it is, what shall we say, entitled, you should have a participation ribbon. Nobody's supposed to compete. Nobody's supposed to shame. Guilt is a bad thing, and all of the control devices humanity has managed to come up with over the eons suddenly get chucked out the window because basically people who cannot succeed in the real world want to change the real world so they don't have to succeed. The system they find themselves in does it for them, but that doesn't get around the fact that the world is really competitive and they aren't prepared to deal with it. You're talking about this thing with Jamie Foxx et al. Well, there's an old truth people ought to be well aware of. Tell a lie long enough, loud enough, you can get anybody to believe it. That same kind of thing about repetition. Just get the name right, spell the name right. I don't care what you say about me. Just get people used to hearing my name. And people do this kind of thing. And you get folk who are in the land of make-believe, known as Hollywood, such like. And what they tend to do is they jump on the latest trends that the suckers out there set up. Not everybody wants to get on the bandwagon. And let me say something. This looks like something I can get a little notoriety on and pick up a few more followers. And they miss the integrity of what happens day after tomorrow. But it's what we like. We fall for it. And there's an old saying in America: you get the representation and the treatment that you deserve. People ought to keep that in consideration. So we're getting this kind of nonsense because we deserve it, because we've taken the easy and not the hard way. But I'll pass the mic. Anybody still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mimi.
Hello. Thank you, Judge.
Yeah.
Hi, Judge. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say and voice my opinion as a U.S. citizen, as a human being. And I want to answer your question, Miss Dana. I'm going to say yes. Was Barack Obama the first gay president? Not only was he the first gay president, he's the first non-birth U.S. citizen president that introduced gay marriage. So my answer would be a yes. And it's right there in front of our faces. So, people can have their truths, and then I got the facts. The facts is I just implemented. He is not a U.S. citizen. Was he raised in Hawaii? Yes. Was he born in Hawaii? No. It's right there in front of our faces. It's public information. So I would say yes, Miss Dana. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm not putting no lipstick on nothing or whatever. That's facts, and I stand on that. So yes, the first. Yes, he is the first.
He's not the first, but I mean, go ahead.
Well, you say president though, president, and the
yeah.
reason.
Hold on. But a question.
Okay.
Is his mother someone who was from Kansas, America? Was his mama from Kansas?
She probably was born in and became and got that paperwork through Kansas.
No, she was born in Kansas. Her great-grandmother was a Confederate officer under Quantrill. Her other side, great-grandfather, was a Confederate Army officer. And her father was born in the United States, so she's an American citizen, right?
Listen, I just saw Judge.
No, I'm going to tell you
what the rule is. Birth certificate, and it's just being the word is out there. So I'm just voicing my opinion.
I know, but it's not a matter
of my reservation.
Not a matter of opinion, ma'am. It's a matter of law. Here's what the law says. And there are two aspects of the U.S. Constitution that come into play. Most people don't know about them. It's the second one that's important. If your mother is a U.S. citizen, it doesn't make any difference where in the world you were born, you are an American citizen. That's by the U.S. Constitution. The problem is that there is another thing in there about qualifications to be a president. Outside of those who were in the country when the Constitution was ratified in 1789. You cannot be the president if you're not born on American soil. That's defined as a state, territory, protectorate, zone, military, naval base, consulate, or embassy. You can be an American citizen like Cruz, the Republican who's prominent, but he freely admits he was born in Canada. So he's not eligible to be U.S. president because even though he's a senator, even though he's a citizen, he was not born on American soil. That's the distinction. So it doesn't make any difference where in the world Obama was born. If he popped out of an American, he's an American citizen, but if he wasn't born on American soil, he's not eligible for president. Now, here's the practical consideration. The birth certificates that he submitted when he was attending college show that he was born in a certain hospital room in Nairobi, Kenya, to a certain doctor whose address, credentials, et cetera, not to, but birthed by a doctor in terms of the attending physician. All of the documentation is in order. It notes that his mother was 18 years, 3 months old, a citizen of Kansas, United States, and his citizenship is listed as jointly American and Kenyan. His father was a Kenyan citizen, so that made him Kenyan. The problem is that birth certificate won't go away. Now, there is another one that he produces 18 months after he's in the White House. That's from Hawaii. That's where his grandparents, maternal grandparents, were staying.
And I love that you said that. It doesn't have that seal.
Now, here's the other thing.
Okay.
Not long before this came up, when I had my show, there were two people from Hawaii who needed passports because they wanted to take a trip. So I said, come on in my office. I'll fix you up. I got on the phone, called the Department of Vital Statistics in Oahu. That's where Pearl Harbor is located, in Honolulu. And I got on the phone, and 48 hours later, by express mail, 2 birth certificates so they could forward them on for passports. Now, you're the president of the United States, and it takes you 18 months in the White House to get a Hawaiian birth certificate. I don't buy it. And by the way, you have to understand the kinship. Barack Obama's maternal grandfather was first cousin to guess who? George Herbert Walker Bush, president of the United States. So that makes him, George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, cousins. That is Barry Soetoro, his adoptive name. In addition, guess who else is a cousin? All at the same time, Vice President Dick Cheney. So you have Dick Cheney for VP, Barack Obama for president, George W. Bush president, George Herbert Walker Bush president, and all of them are cousins. And Barack Obama's grandfather was first cousin to George Herbert Walker Bush, Uncle Herbie, the same person that financed George Herbert Walker Bush setting up Zapata Oil and a number of other things, and also the person that founded Halliburton. You may have heard of all of that. Also, somebody that dealt with Lolo Soetoro on a business basis for quite some time before granddaughter married him when she was 19 years old. Now, that's your story with Barack Obama that a lot of people want to obscure. It's just a failure of the First Amendment as it applies to the press, who has abdicated their responsibility to deal with in-depth investigative reporting on behalf of the American public, because they have an agenda stake in the outcome. Now, that's where we are right now.
You are absolutely amazing. And thank you for the breakdown. So I guess I'm going to reword my answer. In other words, small story short, Judge, he is not a legitimate president, I guess, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The problem, though, is we don't know H.G. Wells, and we can't go back in a time machine and undo it. Just be vigilant so it doesn't continue. And we might want to look at what is going on right now, not in terms of Trump, mega Trump, evil Trump, or anything. Let's just look at what people are doing with the American system. The whole Bill of Rights that was ratified in 1791, 2 years after the Constitution was in 1789, is designed to protect the American people from precisely the type of use of the criminal power of the government for political, social, and economic and religious purposes. And whether you like Trump or not, you should understand the principles of law that are being violated in terms of their persecution. Now, I'll give you an example. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be. Okay, that's called what? The Miranda rights? Miranda was not a nice guy. but everybody knows the Miranda rights because we hear it on TV. We're supposed to be taught it in the fifth grade. We're not, but it's there. So we have all of these rights in the names of people who are essentially scoundrels. But because they're the ones that were on deck when the principle came up for review, we know these principles after these people. Now, whether or not you like Trump, you ought to be very concerned that what is going on right now is very much against the letter and spirit of the U.S. law. Even what they're prosecuting him on in certain instances is arguably unconstitutional and should be declared null and void. And the case on that, which is 220 some years old, is Marbury versus Madison. Look it up. And also on the most recent mess with the papers, the U.S. Supreme Court case is United States Department of Navy versus Egan, E-G-A-N. And there are multiple concurring opinions, and that's 1988. And it clearly states what the law is and what the Constitution says. And you'll find very little of that is embraced by what you're seeing. So there are all kinds of things like this that we ought to be concerned about. Now, back to Jamie Foxx and the rest of it. Part of this whole process is the false notion that somehow someone has the authority and the obligation to suppress other people's rights under the First Amendment so that people don't feel threatened, they don't feel uncomfortable. That's not in the U.S. Constitution. Frankly, doesn't give a damn. The other thing is we have this assertion that somebody attempted to overthrow the government. And if you are sorry, unpatriotic, spineless, wormless coward is to think 180 people can overthrow the United States government, you are sorry. That was basically an aggravated case of misdemeanor trespass. And you need to look at the rest of the background and then drop back and compare it to the burning of the Reichstag in 1932 in Germany by the National Socialist Workers' Party and what they did as a consequence. The National Socialist Workers' Party is more commonly known by its German acronym, N-A-Z-I, Nazi. So you might want to take a look back at history instead of worrying about your favorite TV program and see what's going on, because it's being duplicated and the words are even the same, though a lot of them are being corrupted. But Jamie Foxx, that's free speech. January 6th, that's First Amendment as is free speech, where it says the right to assemble and petition the government for redress of grievance shall not be abridged. And that does not mean you have to say it politely or not. So let's look at the other thing that comes out when we look at Jamie Foxx and that lady's response. He shouldn't have said it that way. Oh, from the same people that want to take it so we corrupt English language to satisfy their mental health issues, where I'm not a he or a she. I don't want to be an it, so I become a they. I choose my pronouns, so you get stuck with corrupting the language. So you say, instead of they are plural coming to dinner, you say they is coming to dinner, referring to a singular entity who's got a mental health issue. So they can corrupt the language, but they want to hold somebody else to absolute precision in the use of English. It's rather absurd, actually. So they don't teach it in school anymore. They don't have to learn precise English anymore. You've got a vice president who grins like a hyena and throws meaningless word salad at her audiences instead of being precise in her remarks of state. But yet you want to get somebody because, in your opinion, they were a bit too inflammatory, which, by the way, has long been decided by the United States Supreme Court over the last 230 years, is a matter of irrelevancy unless you can show somebody was particularly and specifically trying to incite a given result. And by the way, background to the whole thing, since we're there, is the next item on the agenda when Pelosi declared it an emergency session, which snatched it off the board, was the Confidence in Elections Act of 1877, which is law, which says anytime there is a displayed lack of confidence in the outcome of the electoral process, Congress shall appoint a 15-person committee, 5 from the House, 5 from the Senate, 5 from the U.S. Supreme Court. 2 of the Supreme Court from each party are to be included, and the Chief Justice, whichever party he might be. On the House at the time was majority Republican. No, Democrats. So there would have been 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And the Senate was majority Republican at the time. So there would have been 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. That would have made 8 Republicans on the commission and 7 Democrats on the commission, the way it worked out. So they would be required under that act of 1877 to take a minimum of 10 days to audit the election results, and as long as necessary thereafter, as is reasonably required to ascertain the true events. So that was next up on the calendar, but it didn't come up because of what some want to say is a stage. And by the way, accusations of election fraud in the 230-some-year history of the country are the 3rd most frequent accusations that become political issues. So what is somebody trying to do here with what we have the press propagandizing the people to accept? And what do we see as an aspect of that when we talk about Jamie Foxx and the castigation he gets for expressing an idea? And remember, you cannot censor an idea from someone's head. You can only attempt improperly under the Constitution to keep an idea from spreading. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights anticipate the opposition to an idea that is unpalatable to be met by other ideas that are more reasonable, logical, rational, analytically derived, and appropriate to the circumstances. So we are stuck in the midst of debating an issue in the wrong terms. We're stuck in the midst of debating a critical issue in terms that have been crafted by the enemies of the points that are to be defended. So that is a manifestation of the success of the propaganda effort when your target starts using the terms that are contrary to their own best interest. So I'll pass the mic with that little lecture. I guess it's Sunday, so we kind of have in church here. It's about that time, at least someplace in the country. So I pass the mic.
I love it, Judge. And, I love everything that you said. And thank you, Dana, again. And everybody, hello, good morning, afternoon, and all that. But here's my thing with these indictments. I would love for you, Judge, to elaborate. Like, I get kind of like puzzled. Like, why does the left get turned on about indictments? It's not like Trump has been indicted. And then my second question or statement or thoughts of these charges, these indictments. So let's say they're trying to get Trump to say that the election was honest. Trump believes it's stolen. So they want to lock him up for like life for that, or maybe 20 years, right? So I guess I'm over here just getting ready to get my shit together. Me and my husband, we both going to prison too because we believe the election is stolen. That's how goofy and stupid it is.
Yes, it is, isn't it? So what they're trying to do is control what people think. And who does that? Nazis, fascisti, communist, totalitarian, nickel and dime dictators in some third world banana republic? Yeah. So we have it here because the operative phase that was on the table 55 years ago explains it. Quote, by any means necessary, unquote. And they will stoop to anything to get their point because you have to look at the people involved. They don't walk into a room with magnificent charisma and take charge as leaders. They skulk in and they're uncomfortable and they fidget and they hide in the shadows. So they want rules that will protect them. And the equivalent is, oh, let's drop back to elementary school. You've all seen it or ought to remember it. You hit me. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm going to tell the teacher. I'm going to tell the teacher. Come here. You hit me. What'd you throw that at me for? I'm going to tell Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson. Robert's going to hit me. Robert's going to hit me. Robert, are you going to hit Jason? Well, he hit me with the book. Robert, please. Now, he hit me with the book. You just wait. You got to go home from school tonight. My mommy's coming to get me. Nah, nah, nah. You won't be able to get me. See, that's what you're looking at. A bunch of little sissified, unmanly creeps or unwomanly creeps going around trying to get the equivalent of teacher to protect them from their own transgressions. So, in other words, this is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And what these clowns are doing is subverting the whole scheme by making it a government of systems for the benefit of the weak who want to rule as though they were strong and who do not mind bending any of the rules that make them possible, because their mantra is by any means necessary. So we have to be eternally vigilant so that we do not allow these kind of inroads to go too far. This is dangerous. It is highly dangerous. And it's going to be a real live mess because just like you said, ma'am, you and your husband don't think like that. But the propaganda is that you are a rarity and only you are some kind of strange somebody because you don't think is advertised.
What was the most honest, secure election in American history?
Well,
that's what they want.
Mm-hmm. Let me give you one little thing on that. You're here in Memphis, Shelby County, Tennessee. In 2008, the federal government, through the Department of Justice, gave Shelby County, that's where Memphis is, the money to replace every machine because the ones used were hopelessly hacked and corrupted and could not deliver a fair election. That was in 2008. In 2021, January, when the Department of Justice came up with this inane mess that there was no significant corruption in the electoral process and it was completely fair and above board, 2 days after they issued that, they issued their quarterly report. This is the same Justice Department, and it said, once again, Shelby County did not have a fair and straightforward election in this cycle because, again, the corrupted and hacked voting machines were still in use, allowing the election to be dictated. So, which one is the truth and which one is a lie? Same Department of Justice, 2 days later, 48 hours difference in the utterance. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's something you ought to know. So that's on record. So are they lying or are they worthy of telling the truth? I mean, are they worthy of considering as telling the truth? They're lying, obviously. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you find that the a person in question has made two drastically inconsistent statements as to the same evidentiary circumstances, you may disregard one in its entirety, you or the other. You may accept one in part, reject in part, or more likely, you will be entitled to reject all of the contentions by the uttering party as false. So, in other words,
And I had another question too, because I'm really into politics, like very thick, as you can tell. As far as the recount and when Trump wanted to do or had to prove what's his name, his attorney, and they was
Giuliani.
Yes, thank you. They was trying to, push that information as far as the election. I noticed that Trump he doesn't say stolen anymore. He says unfair today, which is pretty cool. He's maturing with his language, but it's still, why or how do you feel about why they didn't open it up the case? Because the Democrats seem to think that, everybody Barr and all of them was so faithful and Trump, and that's what that is. But how do you feel about like Philadelphia, Georgia? Why they didn't look at the evidence?
Well, how old? You mind if I ask you how old you are?
49.
Oh, you're young. Okay.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Very young. Now, if you're as old as I am, you remember racism in its undiluted form. And
I'm a military brat, though, Judge.
Yeah, but you weren't alive when this happened. Okay. And what they always said was it was not the people. It isn't the people. It is not good colored people that's rising up like this. It's these outside agitators that's coming in, and these Stokely whatchamacallits and these H-Rap something or another that's coming in, and these Martin Luther Coons that's getting them all fired up and unruly. It's these outside agitators. So it's a very classically, historically racist position that used to be typical of the Southern Democratic Party. And now it has become embraced by the National Democratic Party. So ordinary citizens could not be upset with this. Ordinary citizens like you could not say something's wrong here and something stinks. It has to be this outside boogeyman, Baba Yaga, I guess it is, Trump, who is responsible for these people getting these erroneous ideas. See, that's this old time Southern racism where it's always a boogeyman who incites all of the people to get unruly. So Trump is supposed to be responsible for all of the ills of the country, not the Democratic Party's ill-conceived notions of no home training, emasculation, getting strange creatures with mental health issues masquerading as girls and competing in girls' sports, grooming children as sexual objects in kindergarten through 12th grade. It's not that. It's not destruction of the country's character. It's not that. It's this boogeyman Trump who's supposed to be the evil demon that's causing everybody to go astray. And by the way, that's behind the whole thing that you get.
Hello.
That's behind this whole thing. This silly woman is talking about Jamie Foxx was trying to do to the Jews. It wasn't. It was just First Amendment expression of a point of view. Now, you see, this is all connected. They're getting used to it. These people studied this stuff. It's a science. Okay. I pass the mic. I'm tired of pontificating. I want to listen.
You are so dramatic, friend.
And I'm a pass my mic too. Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
Does anyone want to come up and speak? All right, so while we're waiting on that and waiting on Dana to come back,
By the way,
thank you
one
for
other
time.
little thing.
Well, I'm actually right here. So if other people want to request to come up, please do so. I'll be back I'll be on the space full time in 5 minutes.
Dana.
Okay.
So anybody want to request to come up, do so, and Nikki just bring them up.
And by the way, while we're doing a brief hiatus, I am running for mayor of Memphis, Tennessee. And the press here is trying to act like I don't exist. They won't even mention my name when they mention the candidates. They get everybody's picture but mine. And now I'm the only one that's not a local yokel. And they keep saying this TV judge won't even mention my name. But I did a lot before I got on TV. That's how I got there. But we've got thieves and perverts and corrupt individuals that want to steal some more from the people. So their thing is try to subvert the interest of the people by ignoring or downgrading or bad mouthing the person that might.
I have a question for you, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
We have an awesome audience, and some folks would say I'm a headache, and I guess I'm a troll, but I go in spaces and I do stuff, and I want to be corrected by a judge. Okay. My language per site, it'll say, it'll be smooth skin space. And they'll be talking about reparations. And I said, the language is different. And judge, is the language difference? It's reparations and reparations. Is it different?
People get your idea, don't they?
Because I tell them the one with the A, that is for the slave in the trade of slavery or what have you. If you can prove it, just go up there, get your patent and all that and prove that. But they talk about reparations, and I say reparations is similar to what we receive, what is called a stimulus check, because the government was wrongdoing of warfare, like the COVID shot and what have you, the shutdown.
Well, technically, reparations is payment for a wrong that's done to a class. It's like when they did the Japanese, that was fairly easy because everybody that got something was listed by name as having been in an intern camp or born shortly thereafter. They had the list. There was no question, and it was American citizens got treated like they were in Nazi Germany. So there was a feeling of guilt that got added to the mix, and you have that kind of things. And the Native Americans didn't really get reparations because Article 6 to the Constitution says ratified treaties are part of the supreme law of the land. And the main thing in mind when they put that in there was ratified treaties with the Indian nations, because at the point the Constitution was formulated, there were 13 colonies, some limited territories, and a whole continent populated by Native American nations, Indian nations. And they kind of looked at the situation like Europe right after the fall of Rome did, with the Huns and the Goths and the Germans and the Gauls and you name it. It was a hodgepodge of people, warlike people, and they had agreements. So treaties are agreements with the Native American tribes the way they were anticipated at the time. So that being the case, you have these situations where Native Americans have a treaty status. Japanese Americans had an identity exactitude we lacked, and an immediate wrong that the United States had to right because it had assumed the mantle of righteousness in the world after helping the communists defeat fascism and the Nazis and this imperialistic thing led by Tojo in Japan. So they had to do something to show that they were not part of this old colonial process that was rapidly rotting away at the time. Right now, our problem is that there is no incentive for anybody to do a thing about reparations. Why? Because do you think the Negroes are going to stop voting for the Democratic Party if they don't get reparations? Or do you think whatever the Republican Party offers the black people, do you think many are going to go over to the Republican Party? So one party will suffer no harm for doing nothing, and the other party will get no benefit for doing anything they try. So neither party has an incentive to do a damn thing for us. And we are loyal. We like our ears scratched and our tails, rumps rubbed. And we like to wag our tails, and we like kibbles and bits and treats. And we won't leave massa. We went back to the plantation run by the party that was founded the first part of the 19th century for the specific purpose of protecting and advancing and spreading slavery. So,
okay, Judge, one more quick question. Let me sneak it in. Was it people over here first before slavery?
This is going to be your last one for a second. We need to let somebody else speak.
Okay.
So go ahead.
What are you talking about, people? I know there's
this humans before like the slave trade.
Right now, the latest estimates are pushing back the first human exploration of North and South America to maybe 26 to 32,000 years ago. Maybe. But the common cutoff right now, with what they can prove, is about 15,000 years. I know there are certain people who have a different idea about that, including that Africans were here before anybody else, which technically is the truth because everybody on the planet Earth either remained in Africa or migrated out of Africa. The current indication from DNA is somewhere between 95 and 100,000 years ago. So everybody technically is an African, but they had some people that went through Asia and apparently came across from Siberia to what's now Alaska, and through the breaks in the Ice Age wound up populating North and South America. Now, there is a myth I've heard that says so-called Indians actually came from India. They were brought over by white folk at the beginning of the 19th century in steamships. And at the beginning of the 19th century, they enslaved the Africans that were already here. So that's one thing I've heard, but there is not one shred of anthropological, geological, or DNA evidence to sustain that. But some people believe it. But the other point is, there were various migrations from Asia that wound up populating North and South America, and those go back perhaps as early as 30, 36,000 years ago, more likely about 15 to 16,000. So that's what you have, and that's just the state of affairs right now.
Real quick, so Nikki, I see the Negro has his hand up. So as people can request to come up, and Nikki, just kind of keep track of people that's up to speak and got their hands up in the order. And I kind of want to, and after you speak, the Negro, I want to go into the Jamie Foxx story. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because I've been trying to let the Negro.
All right.
Okay, bro.
Oh, all right. First things first. What's up, Dana? Long time no see. Salute to you, Judge. As always, I put something for that war chest. I want you to slay these demons, and put in that work like you always do. And I'm gonna get to. Yes, sir. No matter what's big or small, I got to make sure I donate something to that war chest. It's very, very important, family. You don't understand. If you don't invest in your advocates and support your advocates, you don't deserve to have any. And that's just the honest, ice cold truth, bucket truth. You better protect that man like Moses West right now, because we letting a lot of good brothers fall to the wayside, and it shouldn't be the case, family. It should not be the case. With that being said, was Barack Obama the first gay president? Dr. Randall Short, shout out to that OG too as well. He mentioned something that he wrote a book, and he has a couple passages devoted to some weirdo stuff like that. From what I heard, that's what the academia walls be saying. But I haven't gotten that book yet to verify that yet. But that's been what's been talked about. The other thing is, I would say that he's more gay adjacent, and what I mean is that he has a lot of policies, that just caters to the community hand over foot, and I find that that's going to be his legacy. He spoke down to Black people interests, Black people that got him into the office. It was our vote, our people. Our ingenuity, and yet still he gave the bag to the funny people. So that's just how I kind of take him, and that's going to be his legacy.
Well said. My personal thing, I never liked Barack Obama. He always struck me as a fake, because in my mind's eye, he reminded me of some fakes I went to college with way back when. He talks like them. He acted like them. He pushes the policy they pushed, and they were not good people. And they were cowards. They weren't going to be out there doing anything, but in later years, they acted like they were. So we have a bill of goods that we've been sold as a people by some individuals that were just punks and cowards, too scared to do anything on their own, but very quick to take advantage of others who did the brave things to open the doors for them. I don't like them for that. And by the way, for your edification, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, the richest person ever to sit in the White House was not Donald Trump. It was Barack Obama, through what his adoptive father, Lolo Soetoro, left him as one of the richest men on the planet Earth when he died. So check that out, see what you find. They'll try to obscure it these days, but it used to be out there.
Don't judge him, Joe Brown.